Most people wait for the perfect time to change their life. But what if the smallest ambition you start part? Time becomes the greatest fortune of your future. Today, I'll show you why the magic is never in the hours. The magic is in the ambition. There's a special kind of ambition that doesn't require quitting your job, risking everything, or waiting for miracles. It's the ambition you build on the side, quietly, consistently, and intentionally. Why should you watch this entire message? Because the difference between people who wish and people who win is usually hidden in this simple idea. Most people underestimate what a few hours of focused ambition can create. But I promise you, if you stay with me till the end, you'll understand how part-time effort can produce full-time freedom, and how one small decision can rewrite the next 10 years of your life. Let me begin with a little truth. You don't need a revolution. You just need a direction. See, people often say, I don't have enough time. But time was never the problem. Ambition is the problem. Because if the ambition is strong enough, you'll find the time. You'll carve it out of tired evenings, quiet mornings, weekends, or lunch breaks. The magic of part-time ambition is simple. You build the new while you live in the old. You keep your responsibilities, your job, your duties, but you add something extra, something that belongs only to your future. When that small seed begins to grow, it does something powerful. It builds confidence. Confidence builds discipline. Discipline builds transformation. And before you know it, your part-time ambition becomes your full-time life. But here's the real reason the part-time plan works so well. Success loves momentum, not pressure. When you try to do everything at once, you quit. But when you start small, when you build at your own pace, when you put in consistent part-time hours, you create a pattern that success can trust. A little ambition each day, a little learning each week, a little progress each month. And suddenly, the world starts counting you among the people who got lucky. But it wasn't luck, it was design. You designed your future in the extra hours, the hours everyone else wasted. You built opportunity in the spaces others overlooked. You invested in a dream while others invested in excuses. So here's the challenge: start something, anything, not full-time, just part-time. Read part-time, build part-time, grow part-time. Because the moment you begin moving in the direction of a better life, the universe starts giving you hints, ideas, connections, strength, and opportunities that you could never see from a standing position. Motion reveals miracles. Don't underestimate what those part-time hours can do. That little ambition can buy back your freedom. It can build your future. It can create options where you once had none. So start today. Start with the hours you have. Start with the ambition you've ignored. Start with something small, because the small thing will one day become the big thing. That's the magic of part-time ambition. It changes your evenings, then your weeks, then your life. Part-time ambition creates full-time transformation because it operates on one of the most powerful principles in personal growth. Consistent forward motion, even in small doses, compounds into results that are impossible to ignore. When someone commits to pursuing something part-time, they remove the overwhelming pressure that stops most people before they ever start. Instead of trying to force transformation overnight, they allow it to evolve naturally, slowly at first, then rapidly, then unmistakably. Transformation does not begin with massive action. It begins the moment a person decides to devote even a sliver of their time to something that matters. When you work on something part-time, you learn the value of making progress in moments rather than in marathons. You begin to understand that every hour invested after work, every night spent learning instead of scrolling, every weekend spent building instead of complaining moves your life forward by inches. And inches, accumulated daily, become miles. The world often celebrates the big breakthroughs, but it rarely sees the small, private battles that create them. The late night decisions, the early mornings, the quiet study sessions, the risks taken after work, these are the invisible moments where transformation takes root. Part-time ambition also teaches discipline in a way full-time pursuits often fail to do. When you balance your responsibilities, your job, your family, and your personal life, yet still carve out time to build something meaningful, you develop a mental toughness that becomes one of your greatest assets. You learn to find time, manage energy, fight distractions, and maintain focus even when you're tired. That kind of discipline is powerful because you earned it under pressure. And when discipline becomes part of you, transformation becomes automatic. There's something incredibly powerful about pursuing a dream while still handling your existing commitments. It creates a dual identity. You become someone who handles today while building tomorrow. Every small action you take reinforces your belief that you are capable of more than your circumstances suggest. This belief is the seed of transformation. You cannot grow into a new life while thinking like your old self. But when you prove to yourself, day after day, that you can show up even in small increments, you slowly expand your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who wishes for change and start seeing yourself as someone who creates it. Part-time ambition also protects you from burnout. When people try to change their entire life overnight, they often collapse under the pressure. They burn out because they expect the transformation to happen instantly, and when it doesn't, they quit. But part-time ambition allows you to grow sustainably. It gives you enough challenge to keep moving, but enough balance to keep going. You can build a new life without destroying your current one. You can grow without breaking. And this balance is exactly why part-time ambition is so effective. It works with your life, not against it. Another reason part-time ambition leads to full-time transformation is that it gives you time to refine your direction. When you start small, you get to experiment. You get to learn what you enjoy, what you're good at, where you struggle, and what path feels natural. You discover whether the dream you're chasing is truly yours or simply an idea you borrowed from someone else. And because the stakes are lower, you can adjust, pivot, correct your course, and improve your strategy without the fear of catastrophic failure. This makes your growth smarter, not just faster. Part-time ambition also builds momentum. At first, momentum is tiny. It's a spark, a whisper, a possibility. But the more you show up, the stronger it grows. Your effort creates results. Results create confidence, and confidence fuels even more ambition. Your transformation becomes self-reinforcing. Before long, you reach a point where the thing you once worked on quietly in your spare time begins to produce opportunities, new skills, new income, new relationships, new directions, and new levels of belief. What started as part-time effort begins to influence your full-time reality. Your work changes, your decisions change, your possibilities change, and ultimately your identity changes. Part-time ambition teaches you that transformation is not an event. It is a process. You transform not by taking one bold step, but by taking hundreds of small steps. And the beauty of small steps is that they are accessible to everyone. You don't need to quit your job. You don't need a big budget. You don't need a perfect plan. All you need is willingness. The willingness to use an hour. The willingness to try. The willingness to begin. When you pursue something part-time, you also develop resilience. You learn to push through fatigue, to manage doubt, to endure slow progress, to stay committed even when results are not immediate. This resilience becomes one of the defining elements of transformation, because transformation rarely happens in straight lines. There will be setbacks, distractions, plateaus, and moments where progress is invisible. But part-time ambition teaches you to keep going, because it doesn't require dramatic leaps. It simply requires consistency. And consistency is something you can control, no matter what challenges arise. Part-time ambition builds a foundation that can eventually support a full-time future. Many of the most successful careers, businesses, skills, and opportunities in the world started as part-time side efforts. A few hours here, a few hours there, slowly developing into something significant. When you commit to small steps every day, eventually you reach a point where your part-time creation becomes more meaningful, more fulfilling, and even more profitable than your full-time obligations. And when that happens, transformation becomes unavoidable. Your new life begins to overpower your old one. The real power of part-time ambition lies in its ability to change your direction. Even a small change in direction, if maintained long enough, will take you to an entirely different destination. You may not feel it day by day, but over months and years, the gap between who you were and who you have become becomes undeniable. That gap is where transformation lies. That gap is where your future is built. Consistency beats intensity because the human mind and human habits are designed to respond more to repetition than to rare bursts of effort. One intense moment can inspire you, but it cannot change you. What changes a person is the rhythm of repeated action, the quiet repetition of doing the right thing again and again until it becomes part of who you are. Consistency builds patterns, and patterns build identity. Most people underestimate this because they are seduced by dramatic beginnings. They want to feel the excitement of a big start, the rush of declaring their goals, the energy of day one. But the real transformation never lives in day one. It lives in day 2, day 10, day 50, and every day after that when no applause is waiting for them. Intensity is easy to ignite, but almost impossible to sustain. It relies on emotion, inspiration, motivation, and temporary energy. These forces are powerful, but they fade. And the moment emotion fades, intensity collapses. Consistency, on the other hand, does not require lightning in your spirit. It requires a simple decision repeated so many times that it becomes automatic. Consistency turns action into a habit, habit into a routine, and routine into a lifestyle. That's why it wins every time. When you commit to being consistent rather than relying on intensity, you remove the pressure to be perfect. You stop measuring progress by dramatic leaps and start valuing the small, steady improvements that eventually redefine your capabilities. You begin to understand that doing a little each day is not a sign of weakness. It is the secret to long-term success. The mind learns better through repetition than through force. The body adapts through rhythm, not shock. Skill grows through practice, not panic. This is why consistency quietly becomes the engine of progress. Consistency builds trust within yourself. Every time you show up, even for a short period, you send a message to your own mind: I follow through. I keep my word. I move forward. You build an internal reputation, and that reputation becomes the foundation of your confidence. Confidence does not come from grand declarations. It comes from evidence. And evidence is only created through consistent action. You don't need to do something spectacular. You just need to keep doing it. Over time, the small actions accumulate, and the evidence becomes undeniable. Intensity often leads to burnout because it demands too much, too fast. People push themselves hard for a few days and then collapse for weeks, creating a cycle of effort and guilt, enthusiasm and disappointment. Consistency avoids this trap. It creates a pace you can sustain. It allows you to keep moving without draining your energy or overwhelming your mind. It teaches you how to balance growth with life, ambition with energy, and goals with responsibilities. When you move at a steady pace, you remain stable, grounded, and capable of making progress even when motivation is low. Another reason consistency beats intensity is the compounding effect. Small actions compound like interest. They grow quietly, invisibly, and steadily, and before you know it, you have reached a level that intense effort could never have achieved. You don't see the change every day, but the change is happening every day. When you read consistently, your knowledge compounds. When you practice a skill consistently, your mastery compounds. When you work on a project consistently, your results compound. Intensity may give you a burst, but consistency gives you a lifetime advantage. Consistency also removes the drama from progress. Instead of making your goals emotional events, you turn them into normal parts of your life. You don't wait for inspiration to strike. You don't wait for the perfect mood. You don't wait for a burst of motivation. You simply act. This simplicity is powerful because it eliminates excuses. Most excuses are emotional, not logical. Consistency doesn't negotiate with emotions. It simply continues. Another advantage of consistency is that it creates momentum. At first, momentum is almost invisible. It feels slow and fragile. But as long as you keep showing up, momentum strengthens. It becomes easier to continue than to stop. This is the turning point where consistency becomes effortless. The action that once felt difficult becomes natural. You no longer push yourself, the habit pulls you. This is when progress accelerates. This is when breakthroughs happen, and intensity cannot create this effect because it does not last long enough to build momentum. Consistency also makes improvement measurable. When you take repeated action, you can see what works and what doesn't. You can adjust, refine, correct, and optimize. You grow smarter. You make strategic changes. You learn through experience rather than guesswork. Intensity prevents this because it happens in irregular bursts, making it hard to measure and hard to repeat. Consistency gives you data. It gives you patterns. It gives you clarity. One of the quiet powers of consistency is that it turns ordinary people into extraordinary performers. Not because they have more talent, more money, or more intelligence, but because they have the patience to show up repeatedly while others quit. The world overvalues talent and undervalues persistence. But persistence shapes reality. Persistence builds skills. Persistence develops expertise. Persistent people become the ones others admire not because they were gifted, but because they refused to stop. Consistency also stretches your endurance. When you show up regularly, even in small increments, you gradually develop the capacity to do more. Your mind expands. Your discipline strengthens. Your ability to focus improves. You can handle bigger tasks, bigger goals, and bigger responsibilities because you have trained yourself over time. Intensity tries to leap to the end. Consistency respects the process. Consistency lowers resistance. What felt difficult becomes familiar. What felt intimidating becomes manageable. What felt impossible becomes routine. This transformation happens so slowly and subtly that you barely notice it. But one day you look back and realize how far you've come. Consistency keeps you in the game long enough to win. Most people fail, not because they lack ability, but because they don't stay long enough to see the results of their effort. They quit in the early stages, where progress is slow and invisible. Consistency carries you through that invisible stage, giving you the endurance to reach the visible breakthroughs that intensity never sticks around long enough to achieve. Consistency builds the life you want one small action at a time. It is not glamorous. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. But it is unstoppable. Start before you're ready, because readiness is an illusion that keeps more dreams locked away than fear ever could. People wait for the perfect moment, the perfect skill set, the perfect confidence, or the perfect environment, not realizing that none of these things arrive before action. They arrive because of action. The idea that you must feel fully prepared before you begin is one of the most convincing lies the mind tells. It's a lie built from caution, comfort, and a desire to avoid uncertainty. But growth has never lived inside certainty. Growth begins the moment you step into the unknown with whatever you have, however incomplete it may be. When you start before you're ready, you enter the most powerful classroom in the world, experience. Experience teaches you more in 1 week than planning teaches you in 1 year. You learn not from imagining the path, but from walking it. You learn what works, what fails, what excites you, what drains you, and what direction feels right. You learn how to adjust, adapt, and improve. You learn to rely on resourcefulness instead of perfection. And resourcefulness is far more valuable because it allows you to move even when conditions are not ideal. People often believe readiness is a feeling they must wait for. But readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision. Your mind rarely feels ready for anything unfamiliar because unfamiliarity triggers uncertainty. And uncertainty triggers hesitation. That hesitation convinces you that you need more preparation before you begin. But the more you prepare without acting, the further you drift from the moment you should have taken the first step. You end up building confidence in your doubts instead of building confidence in yourself. Starting before you're ready breaks that cycle. Action creates clarity. When you finally begin, even imperfectly, the fog lifts. The path becomes clearer. You see possibilities and obstacles you could never identify from a distance. You develop the ability to make adjustments that planning alone could never reveal. Every step, even the clumsy ones, gives you information. And information makes you stronger. The irony is that the clarity people wait for actually comes after they take action, not before. Starting before you're ready also teaches humility and courage at the same time. You learn to accept that you don't have all the answers, and that's perfectly fine. You develop courage by doing things you're not fully prepared for. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move forward despite fear. And the moment you take that first step, something powerful happens, the fear shrinks. Your mind realizes that the monster it imagined is smaller than the reality you're stepping into. The act of beginning destroys illusions that held you back. Another strength of starting early is that it removes the unrealistic pressure of perfection. When you start imperfectly, you don't expect everything to be flawless. You allow yourself to learn, to make mistakes, to grow into the role. Instead of pretending you must already be a master, you give yourself permission to evolve. And evolution is far more powerful than perfection. Perfection is static. Evolution is unstoppable. Beginning before you're ready also accelerates your growth because it forces you to become the person your goals require. You grow into readiness through action. You develop discipline because you must. You develop skill because you need it. You develop confidence because you earn it. And this growth feels natural because it happens in real time. Instead of waiting until you feel prepared, you prepare through movement. One of the most overlooked truths in any journey is that skill comes after starting, not before. No one begins with mastery. Every expert was once a beginner. Every successful person started in uncertainty. Every visionary started with more questions than answers. It is through doing, failing, adjusting, and trying again that mastery emerges. Waiting to feel ready robs you of the very experiences required to become ready. Starting before you're ready also separates you from the crowd. Most people wait. They wait for signs, guarantees, perfect timing, or emotional certainty. The few who act early, those who start with shaky hands, unclear plans, and imperfect knowledge, are the ones who move ahead while everyone else is still thinking about it. Progress rewards movement, not intention. The world opens for the ones who step forward, not for the ones who hesitate. Another reason to start early is that opportunities rarely announce themselves. They appear suddenly, often disguised as small chances or tiny openings. If you wait for certainty, you miss them. But when you are already in motion, you recognize opportunities faster. You are already engaged, already invested, already mentally awake. Movement makes you more aware. Hesitation makes you blind. Opportunities respond to action because action signals seriousness. Starting before you feel ready also teaches adaptability. When you face real situations, instead of imagined ones, you learn flexibility. You learn how to solve problems, adjust your approach, and remain steady under pressure. These abilities can only be developed through experience. Preparation is helpful, but preparation without action leaves you mentally trained and practically untested. Starting early gives you the chance to test your theories in the real world and refine them through practice. You discover strengths you didn't know you had when you begin earlier than you feel qualified. The process reveals hidden resilience, creativity, discipline, and determination. You learn that you can handle more than you believed. You learn that uncertainty is not a barrier, but a training ground. You learn that self-belief grows every time you take a step forward without knowing exactly where your foot will land. Starting before you're ready also reshapes your relationship with fear. Instead of allowing fear to dictate your timing, you learn to act despite fear. You realize fear does not disappear when you wait. It disappears when you move. And the moment you take action, fear begins to lose its authority. One of the most valuable outcomes of acting early is momentum. Momentum builds faster when you stop waiting for perfect conditions. Even small movement creates energy, and that energy multiplies. Once you're in motion, your mind becomes more focused, your actions become more intentional, and your confidence becomes stronger. Momentum does not start with perfection. It starts with a single imperfect step. Starting before you're ready also teaches you to trust yourself. You learn that you don't need all the answers to begin. You learn that you are capable of figuring things out along the way. This self-trust becomes one of your greatest assets because it allows you to take bigger risks, pursue higher goals, and step into roles that once intimidated you. The truth is that readiness is rarely something you feel ahead of time. It's something you realize when you look back. At the beginning, all you need is willingness. A willingness to try, a willingness to learn, a willingness to move forward, even if your voice shakes or your steps are uncertain. You don't become ready and then start. You start and then become ready.